dragons are coming. In this video, I want to discuss all of the news that has been piling up in my new daddy / new parent hiatus. All the news that's been piling up in regards to House of the Dragon, as well as the most recent news on the potentially up-and-coming Game of Thrones prequel / successor series. Now, you may notice that the background is a little bit different for this video, but everything that I need you to do remains the same. Please, do me two massive favors. The first one is slap a like on this video, as the like goal is going to be 420. Get it? Weed joke. Also, make sure you're subscribed, and this is the most important part. Make sure every notification's turned all the way on after you've subscribed if you enjoy my content, so that way you'll get an alert every single time I drop a video throughout this long night. Let's jump into the most recent news first, and that comes to us courtesy of Entertainment Weekly, which is the official source that Game of Thrones / HBO chooses to release their news in regards to the new prequel series. And with Game of Thrones, they're the official source in which they release the, confirmed information. With Game of Thrones being the most pirated show of all time in between seasons, and that's most of the reason why my channel gained so much traction when I first started making videos about 5 years ago here on YouTube. It was in between the scenes when they're filming seasons. There's leaked scenes, leaked scripts, just in general leaked images from the set, behind the scenes type of stuff. And because of all that, there's multiple different places where Game of Thrones information comes out, but Entertainment Weekly is their official source, and they go on to state that HBO wants to order more Game of Thrones prequels, several of them. In addition to the up-and-coming prequel series House of the Dragon, the network is looking to potentially greenlight more shows set in the world of Westeros. One of which, they go on to state, is a project based on Dunk and Egg in early development. The Dunk and Egg stories by author George R. R. Martin follow the adventures of Sir Dunk the Tall and young Aegon the Fifth Targaryen, and are set 90 years before the events in Game of Thrones. Now, what's interesting is that Ryan Condal, who is the showrunner for House of the Dragon, mentioned in an interview that when he first approached HBO, I think it was back in 2016 or something, he talked to them about wanting to do a Dunk and Egg series. Now, for those of you who don't or have never really read Dunk and Egg or haven't really looked up too much information on it, it's basically like a lone wolf and cub type story. Dunk is sort of the squire for a knight who's on his way out the door and ends up dying. Dunk throws on his armor, just to sort of summarize here, and heads into town, ends up joining this tourney and meets this young man who he thinks is a stable boy, and he asks him basically, hey, take care of my horse and all that good shit. And he ends up finding out that he's a Targaryen. They go on numerous adventures, and there's 3 books that have been written so far set in that universe. Now, according to Entertainment Weekly, HBO is in early talks with trying to get something about that, some sort of iteration of that brought to television, or film rather. They're trying to get some movement off the ground. So they're not greenlighting an entire first season like House of the Dragon. I think House of the Dragon is going to be maybe, hopefully 5 to 7 seasons, but they're not greenlighting a pilot or anything like that. They're still in the early stages of this, but hopefully the popularity of Dunk and Egg and the fact that Ryan Condal first approached HBO about making this series is the reason why they've decided to sort of go ahead with this. Now, there's other rumors that they're doing a Robert's Rebellion prequel series. I do think that would be better set off either as a 3-part movie or maybe a 10-part miniseries. It'll be awesome to go back into sort of the same time frame that the main stories is set in, because we got to realize that the events of Robert's Rebellion are still playing out on screen. I'm sure everybody watching this video and most of the people that watch this show realize that if King Robert Baratheon hadn't have had his rebellion when Rhaegar supposedly kidnapped Lyanna and took her off to Dorne and, the Tower of Joy and had Jon Snow and all that good shit, if Robert had never caused a rebellion, then the Targaryens would still be in power. There probably wouldn't be as many interesting events, we'll say interesting, so to speak, events that take place after Robert's Rebellion, but if they choose to bring this to screen, and I think, judging from the information that we've got so far, Dunk and Egg is probably further along in the development process, if you will, or maybe is closer to being greenlit than the Robert's Rebellion one. But we got to realize that Robert's Rebellion story has kind of been told through flashbacks on the main series, so I don't know if it would, be the smartest decision for HBO to put all of their, regardless what HBO decides to do with Robert's Rebellion, I'm pretty sure it'll make for an amazing adaptation and television series. But going further along in this article, James Hibbert states that that's not all. HBO has been meeting with several top writers, pitching other ideas based on Martin's work. Among the ideas being contemplated is a prequel series based on Robert's Rebellion, which I sort of just covered. And he goes on to state that one of the writers is a name familiar to HBO genre fans, Bruno Heller. He created the historical drama Rome. But the article ends up wrapping up by stating that they're trying to do something similar to what Star Wars did, what Disney did rather, where they announced 10 new Star Wars series that are based around The Mandalorian and just in the Star Wars universe in general. The writer of that article went to go on to state that HBO is trying to do something similar to that. We did have, HBO greenlighting 5 different potential successor series that would take place before the events of Game of Thrones set in Westeros and Essos, and we ended up, out of all of that, we only ended up having The Long Night, which got a pilot made and then got killed, and then we had, House of the Dragon being greenlit into a first season being entirely made, like skipping the pilot phase entirely. So it's interesting, nonetheless, to see where this is going to take us. I do know that HBO is not going to rush out content when it comes to Game of Thrones. Like, it's a different universe when it comes to the WB and what's going on with Justice League universe, but I have full-on faith that whatever we end up getting greenlit to actually come out as a series is going to be top-notch television. And I know I keep saying that, but the main reason being is because Game of Thrones is the greatest series of all time. Now, as far as my own personal thoughts on all of these different Game of Thrones success for whatever the fuck you want to call it, George doesn't like to call them prequels or sequels or anything like that. Let's just call it a further expanded Westerosi universe, right? So a larger Westerosi universe. My opinion on that is I'm all fucking for it. I've wanted Game of Thrones to finish out the series and do it how they were supposed to, with at least 10 episodes. The final 2 seasons should have been 10 episodes. We didn't get that. The fact that Dan and Dave sort of ended it the way they did, regardless of how you felt about it, I still wanted more. I still was going to continue to read the books. I still was going to continue to watch whatever came out after it. James Hibbert did specifically mention that there are no shows that are set after the timeline of Game of Thrones, so we're not going to get like a Arya west of Westeros, or Sansa Queen in the north, or Jon fucks the snow north of the wall. We're not going to get any of those, or ultimately Daenerys coming back. At least that's what they've said about right now. So for the immediate future, meaning like maybe the next 2 years or so, we're not going to find out anything about any Game of Thrones shows that are set like after the events of Season 8. But I will say that the fact that that is specifically touched on means that if there is something that does come out with a Game of Thrones movie, like an actual Season 9 movie or some shit, then it's going to be kept under wraps. They're not going to want all of that information leaking out. They're going to want to keep it a surprise. And I've mentioned several times, and I've done several videos on this channel about just how open Season 8 ended. You can still continue the storyline. Daenerys comes back. We do know that Jon Snow has been brought back, along with several other characters. Drogon flew off with her body to a place that is literally loaded with people who know how to resurrect motherfuckers. If Game of Thrones, or HBO rather, decided to not do a Daenerys' Revenge type of sequel, well, then they're fucking fools. I'm sure that's coming down the pipeline. My feelings overall about all of this is that I'm super excited. I plan on making Game of Thrones or Song of Ice and Fire content for the foreseeable future, and the fact that more TV shows and potentially films and things like that are coming out, well, that just means I'll have content to make for the years to come. Now, lastly, just to sort of wrap this video up, there are some other things that I want to quickly run through that's not really worth taking up anyone's time for, but there was a supposed casting call, or a casting video rather, that was leaked for the role of Kristen Cole with an Australian actor who was auditioning for the part. A conversation that he has was lifted from not only Game of Thrones, but also its dialogue from the actual Song of Ice and Fire novels. So that's complete horseshit. But it does give us a better idea of what to sort of expect for the dialogue of House of the Dragon. Now, one of the things that really brought me into the show was how dramatic some of the conversations that whichever actors were on screen, mainly Cersei and Tyrion. I really enjoyed the dialogue between the two of them. there's not really much to say about the legitimacy of it. I mean, it kind of comes from a source that is known for leaking the Witcher information. So there is some credibility in that. Although they've taken information from my video and put a spin on it and then like claimed it as their own before on their website. So I'm not even going to mention them in my video, but there's some legitimacy to it. As far as do I care what race this character is, or do I care what race Corlys Velaryon is? At this point, I've kind of gotten to the point where as long as the actors are good, that's all that matters. If they're not being cast specifically based on whatever role they are and chosen over someone who's a different race, and they have less acting skill or whatever, like as long as they're not picking someone based solely on race and they actually have talent and they beat out all the other races of people because of their talent, that's all that really matters. I don't care if they cast a one-eyed purple alien to play the role of Rhaenyra. I mean, I know they won't, but really, it's like, does it matter? Does it bother anyone? The only thing that'll bother me is if they hire some person who doesn't know how to deliver lines, and watching them on screen takes me out of the scene. That's when I'll have an issue. That's when I'll boycott watching the show. And that's when I'll bash it online. And that's ultimately what you're going to have to do, is just wait and see what happens, wait and see who's cast in the role, and then see how they perform on screen. Don't start talking shit about it before it comes out, because that's fucking stupid. You're playing into that role of like, oh, let's gaslight everyone and say they're being racist by not casting enough black people, or they're being reverse racist by casting too many black people. Like, instead of saying any of that shit, just wait till it comes out and then watch it, then decide. And if you don't like it then, well, then make your opinion vocal online instead of doing it now. I'm just rambling at this point. I'm going to get the fuck out of here. All right. I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you wonder why I keep doing long blinks, it's because I have a baby downstairs who's sleeping. So right now, I should have been taking a nap, but I'm not. I need to make videos, and I'm going to try to put out at least one video a week for the next couple of months. Once Luke gets on a normal sleeping schedule, then I'll be able to continue to pump out content as often as possible. What I will do is reserve time for when crazy news happens, like when we have more casting announcements that have been officially confirmed, or when these leaks start rolling in, coming closer to the springtime. They are building sets right now, and supposedly England is fast-tracking to get everyone vaccinated. Well, anyway, I want to thank you all so much for watching. If you could, please do me those two massive favors. The first one being slap a like on this video. It really helps my channel out. If you enjoy my content, that's just something small you could do. The like goal is going to be 420. Also, this is the most important part. Make sure you have your notifications turned on and that you're subscribed. So that way, if you're subscribed and you have your notifications turned on, you'll get an alert every single time I drop a video throughout the wait for House of the Dragon, or as it's referred to on my channel, the Long Knot. A super special shout out to every single person on my Patreon family over on patreon.com/SirHuntsReviews. And I want to thank you all so much for watching. My name's Mark, and this has been Sir Hunts.
Dragon Daddy Reviews.